All right, welcome everyone. Welcome to the first and what I hope is to be many beer and broadband discussions. I think there's plenty of broadband discussions and beer that happen, but we're officially putting something together that we'd like to hopefully be a series. My name is Brian Hollister and I'm the CEO of Bonfire Engineering and Construction. I'll be your MC for today's discussion. I've been in telecom for over 20 years. Our business is focused on doing all the design from central office to all through the outside plant to the customer. We do full design and full construction of broadband networks. I'm also a big fan of beer, and I believe that collaboration and discussion is always better over a pint. And as we mentioned in the invite, our goal is to educate, connect, and inspire. And depending on how many beers we have, probably entertain. This is going to be a conversation, not a presentation, with fellow leaders across the industry. I'm very thankful for these gentlemen that have joined us today and are volunteering their time to talk about the issues that we're all facing. For those of you that are listening, if you have questions, please put them into the chat window. Nick Dinsmore on our team here will be watching those, and we'll make sure that we answer as many of those throughout today's meeting. So let's start off by doing some introductions. Let's first make sure we all have a beer in hand. Is that check mark? Beer? Beer. All right, good. We all got beers. That's great. All right, we are focused on the most important priorities. That's good. All right, so let me kick things off. I want to get started. Let's start off with Brian, then Paul, Nathan, and Daniel. Will each one of you do a brief introduction of yourself, the company you work for, a little bit of background, and that'd be great. So let's start off with you.
Absolutely. My name is Brian. I'm the CEO of Mammoth Networks and Visionary Broadband. This is a very interesting time for us right now because we've been developing broadband since 2000 and tackling that in rural markets such as Kremling. So the impetus for broadband in a COVID environment especially, which I think is a timely discussion we're going to have today, and you pair that with the elections and whatnot that's going on, and now students at home and people working from home, it's pretty rewarding what we're doing. So I oversee that broadband development and in a team that spans from Spokane, Washington to Billings, Montana, and down to Albuquerque and Durango area.
Great, thanks. Paul?
Yeah, thank you. Paul Sulish, I'm the CEO of BArea Networks. BArea was founded about 11 years ago, where our founders got together and tried to make some really cool tech and mathematics, accessible to many people. They felt that, the optimization and automation shouldn't be held tightly for a few people. It should be democratized. So over the last 11 years, we've worked across the world. Initially, we started out as a software company. And then we had to pivot into services about 5.5 years ago when we entered the US market. And since then, really, most of our work is focused on rural America, working with cooperatives, utilities, public and private power companies, those that want to overbuild with fiber. And we've also had enterprise software in other parts of the world. We've done projects in UK as well. So yeah, we've seen some interesting things. Our approach is unique because we try to use really good, interesting tech that really focuses on geospatial data. We have a digital network engineering approach, which allows us to go at speed and scale. So it's been really interesting. We roughly, at any given stage, have between 500,000 and 1 million homes passed in flight. So we try to do our bit as well. Brian, to your point, for us at BArea, we feel quite compelled that we need to step up to the mark and try to make an impact. I've got kids at home that are trying to remote learn, and I know there's others, and apparently I think the latest stats is 9 out of 10 kids globally are at home, which is a huge challenge, not only for us parents, but for the kids trying to learn. So yeah, I think we all have a duty and an obligation, and that's what's keeping me up at night, but also giving me some fire to crack on and try to do our bit.
Great, absolutely. Nathan, Carbo.
And to unmute myself there. Hey, so my name's Nathan. I'm with System Services Broadband. We're a Mid-South based OSP contract firm. We primarily deal with HFC and fiber to the home networks. We have the same customer base we've been working with for quite a long time. It's pretty simple. That's all. That's what we do. We're just the contractor. We're the muscle.
Cool. Thanks, Nathan. All right. Mr. Danny Reed, you're up next, sir.
Yes, sir. Thanks, Brian. I'm Danny Reed. I'm the owner of Splash Fiber. So Splash stands for Splice and Lash. So we do mostly aerial fiber construction installation. And then we also splice and test, do all sorts of different testing on fiber. My background's been mostly in fiber specifically. I started in the industry after I got out of the Army several years ago and worked for JDSU for a while and kind of learned the technology behind fiber and coax and also twisted pair, but mostly fiber. So we do a lot with fiber to the home. We've been doing a lot with small cell lately, but mostly outside plant construction.
Great. Thanks, Danny. Thank you, everyone. All right, great. So I think we have a great roundtable today, a lot of different perspectives all around, of course, the broadband industry. So let's kind of get things started off here. I think clearly the main topic of conversation is not just our industry, but across all our businesses is how we're running the business in today's environment, keeping our people engaged, healthy, happy mentally, and also planning for post-pandemic growth. So let's start off with the people. As I know, all three are when you think about it, obviously everything we all do, except for Paul, has a lot of horsepower behind the scenes, of course, with the code that they've created, but still has an amazing amount of people, right? We all have a ton of people in this business. So I guess let's start off with really thinking about the people and the things that we're trying to do to keep our teams focused on doing the best job they can in this crazy environment. So let's start off with Brian. Mr. Worthen, I know you've been obviously in the industry for a long time. How are your people handling this change, the new normal, as we're all starting to say, and how are you helping them through it?
Well, in our business, it's easy to put things in perspective because we talk about this a lot here. We're powering up 911 centers. We're powering up hospitals. We're the redundancy for a number of hospitals, school districts, right? So when we're counties, cities, so as a provider of those services, when I'm talking to my staff, it's easy to say the community relies on you, right? But there's also, that's the interesting thing about the situation we're in today is there's also the aspect of keeping your employees healthy. And so we find ourselves actually empowering our employees and telling more stories about, hey, what you're doing is helping planes land, and the hospital in Wyoming treating the most COVID patients, we're providing the internet there, right? It drives that home. But it's that perspective that's needed because there's a dichotomy, right? There's the group of admin folks that can work remote and work from home. And then there's the field personnel that really that's what they do, right? So there's a lot of attention right now to grocery workers and people stocking shelves, and the appreciation, the trucking industry. And I think that when this is all said and done, I think there's going to be appreciation for what we're doing, all of us on this call, right? Because we're working towards keeping people connected, and we're seeing gaps in student connectivity, home connectivity, and talking to our employees about that solution and them being a part of that is helping with that discussion. But on the flip side, we have to tell we're having to tell employees, make good decisions, protect yourself. For even the residential installs, we're starting to install in the garage or other locations where there's not as much customer interaction. And I even said it's protecting our employees and their health, but there's also an aspect of protecting our customers. So it's a storytelling process and it's an engagement process, and we find a need to talk to our employees more during this time. You're on mute, Brian.
Gosh, dang it. Sorry, guys. Well, I feel we're in the same boat. I feel like it's constant engagement. There's never, there's not ever enough, right? And one of the things we've been starting to do a lot is daily huddles with each work group. A quick check-in, how you doing? What's going on? You know, obviously leveraging video conferencing as much as possible. But we're like you. We have some of our team that was able to work remotely very easily, engineering and back office. But of course, the folks that are out on the front lines in the field every day, very, very different. So we've had to do a lot of changes and think through a lot of those kinds of components. Before I call the next person out, I guess one quick thing is I'm kind of curious to how many of you right now are doing this conference or this call, let's not call it a conference, with kids at home? Okay, we just said I got everyone. All right, I was just kind of curious, right? Because it's like the new norm, right? I think we were laughing right before we hit record as other folks came in, and we all had to, you know, please, kids, I know it's been okay to, you know, come in and break in on conference calls because they love it. I have an 8 and 10-year-old, but you know, had to really lay down the law, like please give Daddy 1 hour today. So I think we're all living in this this new norm. So let's move forward. So Paul, let's move to you. I know your team obviously is more office bound and obviously spread out geographically. You know, how has it been transitioning your team to 100% remote work environment? You know, what types of tools are you guys using? Challenges that you've encountered with moving your team suddenly, obviously, to an all remote situation?
Sure. So I think, yeah, look, we've, in some ways, I suppose we're fortunate that, you know, we're not on the front lines, so to speak. We do have a number of offices around the world where people typically come in and do their work. Most of the work we do is cloud-based systems. We use AWS heavily for most of our work. We use the Google Suite for docs and other ways to collaborate on documentation. You know, we use Slack, we use FlowDoc. We've got a lot of young tech-savvy people, so they love their tools and their tech. So we often try to, you know, bring in new things, see if they work for the broader team. So from that perspective, we felt we were appropriately ready to take on that challenge. So the challenges were more around people that could, you know, no longer could come into an office and feel, you know, and have that aspect of camaraderie and that social aspect of being around their teammates, which a lot of them really enjoyed, right? So, you know, even though we have daily rhythms where everyone does a daily in the morning, it's a stand-up, so it's 15 minutes, it's pretty quick, just to get aligned and get on with the day. Some of us have been doing that remotely anyway via, you know, Google Hangouts or Zoom, but there were large concentrations of people in our Australian offices and the Philippines that would come in every day and, you know, love the social aspect of their job. So there was a tough transition when we said, look, initially we said, you know, if you can work from home, please work from home. And then over the course of a couple of weeks, obviously we needed to lock that down. And as an executive team, we decided that we mandated working from home. And then we, you know, we had instances where in certain areas of the Philippines, there wasn't great internet. So we managed to organize dongles to be sent out to those employees so they could work effectively. You know, and something that we wanted to stress with everyone from the get-go is, look, we don't expect everyone to feel like they're 100% productive, they're efficient. This is different. It's okay. You know, we expect the dips in productivity. It's fine. Everyone's in the same boat. Our customers get it. Excuse me. So that we kept stressing that pretty regularly. As an executive team, we set up a daily COVID-19 call in the afternoons where we checked in between us and each of us were checking in on other staff who were checking in on other staff. We had phone trees set up by our staff. We had YouTube channels to show how people exercise. So really going above and beyond the work and trying to keep things social, you know, keeping an ear out and an eye out for each other in terms of not only, you know, how we're feeling about work, but how we're feeling as people. So to the extent that we said, look, we get it if you don't want to have your video on because you haven't showered yet, but we'd really rather see your face because we want to see your body language. Are you doing okay? You know, what do you need from us? What else can we do? So that worked really well, and the team stepped up, you know, in a fantastic fashion globally. And as I said, we sort of try to keep check on each other from, you know, mental health, and a lot of us, you know, everyone's going through different things in a different way. As you pointed out, you know, Brian, I've got 3 kids at home, and, you know, everyone's got different reality of what they're trying to fit in around work and things like that. So we've tried to make that overt, that it's okay. Let's just do what we can. We'll be fine. So for the most part, we transitioned really well. But we've seen, as you know, as this is now, as it feels like it's dragged on, right? This is like week 4 or something. It's starting to get a little bit old for some people. So we're just keeping a very close eye on that. More recently, our head of people and culture brought in an initiative to offer employee assistance programs globally, where people can speak to a counsellor, you know, anonymously. It's fully confidential, and so we're setting that up now, just as a secondary line. And if people want to go speak to someone, they may not want to talk to their direct manager, or, you know, they just want someone they can just, you know, spitball stuff with. So that's something we're bringing online now, and it felt like the right time, and we're fortunate enough that we can, you know, crack on and do that. So I think we're fortunate that we could transition and keep productive and not really slow down the rate of production of design work or engineering work for that side of the business. The other side of the business that's SaaS based, you know, people can just log in via a browser to self-serve, that side of things. So support there has been fine. So yeah, it's for us, I think the challenges have been more around just the health and well-being of our staff as people, more so than the work. And, you know, to Brian's point, you know, we've tried to also advocate and, you know, tell stories and say, hey, you're making an impact. This is important. You know, there's 9 out of 10 kids home at the moment globally. There's kids in rural America that have no internet. People are driving to McDonald's or outside school to try to do their homework. What else can we do? What are we not doing? And trying to get that, you know, call to action through the entire organization. As much as us leaders, you know, feel that burning, I think it's important that everyone sort of has that sense of, you know, responsibility and accountability to make that difference. So yeah, it's been an interesting time. I think in many ways we've been fortunate, but yeah, there's been some adjustments. And as I said, the focus has really been on just health, well-being of the staff.